What if OCD isn't really about anxiety at all, but about what your system had to do to survive? On the surface, obsession looks like control. The replayed conversation, the perfect line of objects, the door checked one more time. But beneath that surface is a quieter story. In many lives I've sat with, OCD is a survival language learned in childhood, when certainty and safety could not be found in the people who were meant to provide it. The behaviour is loud. The origin is subtle. I'm a psychotherapist, executive coach, clinical supervisor, and award-winning researcher. Over 2 decades, I've spent more than 20,000 hours in the chair listening to people who couldn't make sense of their thoughts, who were drowning in self-doubt, who had lived for years with a feeling that any mistake might end the world. I'm Dr. Tony Weston, and I created the Lifelong Capacities Map to name and grow the inner skills that restore psychological vitality. Let's start with a simple clarification. In DSM-5, OCD is no longer filed under anxiety disorders. It sits in its own family of obsessive-compulsive and related conditions. That move reflects something I see every day. While anxiety may accompany OCD, the engine underneath is different. Again and again, my research and clinical work show a pattern. What looks like irrational control is a protective adaptation to early relational conditions that taught the child, you must hold yourself together because no one else will. And here is where we must tread carefully. These conditions are often invisible to outsiders. Many of my clients grew up in homes that looked immaculate. Independent schools, summer holidays, polished manners, nothing a social worker would flag. Yet inside those rooms, love was rationed to achievement. Affection arrived with a red pen in its hand. The child learned to anticipate a standard rather than receive a self. To understand this, we have to listen, not for spectacular trauma, but for the micro-weather of a childhood. The tone at the breakfast table, the silence after a small error, the smile that only appeared when grades did. Luca grew up in such a climate. No one ever shouted. No one needed to. A raised eyebrow could turn his stomach to glass. As an adult, he checked locks, emails, conversations. He checked himself. What was fragile in him was not intelligence or willpower. He had both in abundance, but capacity 3.1, a clear, cohesive, evolving sense of self. When you are calibrated for other people's signals, your own voice recedes. Obsession rushes in to fill the space where self should stand. Aisha's family had reputation down to an art. The house gleamed. The table settings were perfect. Feelings were disinfected before they could enter a room. When life got painful, she scrubbed the kitchen until her hands burned. Her breath fixed to the rhythm of the cloth. This was not about dirt, it was about permeable borders. What had never been taught or allowed was capacity 4.4, secure relational boundaries. If you can't keep emotional toxins out, you try to remove them from surfaces. Cleanliness becomes a stand-in for safety. Diego learned excellence as his passport to belonging. If his work was flawless, the house was calm. If he slipped, the temperature dropped. He became a curator of symmetry, files aligned, days regimented, mind braced. Underneath the order was terror of a single lapse. What needed to grow was capacity 6.1, impulse control, not as harsh self-policing, but as the learned pause in which a free choice can appear. At first, the pause felt like standing on a cliff edge. With practice, it became a step onto ground that held. This is how OCD behaves when we meet it developmentally. Not as madness, but as memory. The mind takes up the work the body and relationships could not do at the time. Thought becomes a shield. Ritual becomes a lullaby. In the Lifelong Capacities Map, I name and train the inner skills that give the system options again. When 3.1 strengthens, your voice returns and the inner critic loses its badge. When 4.4 matures, you can say no to what harms and yes to what heals, without needing to polish the world to a shine. When 6.1 is practiced with compassion, you discover you can feel the urge to act and still choose your way forward. Obsession loosens when the person inside no longer needs it to survive. None of this is a moral failure. It is adaptation. Children do not choose their weather. They learn to walk in the rain they're given. The tragedy and the hope is that these adaptations persist long after the storm has passed. They can be unlearned. They can be rewritten. If you recognise yourself here, begin gently. When the thought arrives, what if I miss something? What if I'm dangerous? What if this never ends? Don't fight the thought. Ask, what is it protecting? Notice whose standards you are bracing against. Let your breath be an anchor rather than an argument. Place your feet on the floor and find a small pause you can hold. In that pause, you are not your compulsion. You are a person with choice. Luca's work was to separate his own timbre from the orchestra of other people's expectations. As his sense of self consolidated, the checking faded like a habit outgrown. Aisha learned that a boundary is not unkindness, but hygiene of the soul. The cloth spent more time in the drawer. Diego practiced allowing a benign imperfection and discovered the house did not fall, and neither did he. Each of them did something braver than certainty. They learned to live. On this channel, we treat symptoms as signals and humans as capable of growth. The Lifelong Capacities Map maps 12 metadomains and 48 competencies, a whole landscape of skills that can be built. OCD, seen through this lens, is not a verdict. It is a direction of training. If this resonates, I've linked a short PsycheScription, a guided practice that helps you find the pause before compulsion and strengthen impulse control in real time. You'll also find a free worksheet to map your capacities and my book, Transform Your Life, the ultimate guide to self-mastery, if you want the full framework. And if this is pressing and personal, you can book a session with me directly. The links are below. You are not broken. You adapted. What protected you then is asking for an update now. With the right skills, the spiral becomes a path, not away from yourself, but back to where your life can be lived with dignity, warmth, and freedom.